Tony Gosling, under George Bush Jr. and also Obama, you had, in the case of humanitarian needs that Iran had, for there to be sanctions waiver. Why do you think Trump is not following the path of his predecessors?
Well, let's just make it clear, this is not just Donald Trump here. This is the deep state in the United States. I mean, we're facing a global pandemic, but the US is stopping medical supplies. Obviously, should be obvious to everybody that this is a very important violation of international law. Any country that helps Iran with medical supplies also is being blacklisted by the United States and punished by the United States economically. Withdrawal of, for example, export licenses. So what's happening is a collective punishment of the innocent people of Iran by the United States. This is really a terrible black mark and, of course, a crime, an international war crime by the United States. One also might suggest that there is an element of bioeconomic warfare here, because we've had several individuals, both in Iran and in China, suggesting that this may be a bioweapon that's being used. Of course, we've seen both the two main so-called enemies of the United States, China and Iran, in the top 4 countries that have been hit by the coronavirus. So there are obvious people are obviously suspecting that there is some sort of ulterior motive, because economic warfare is just as powerful as real warfare. What you can do is kill a country's population, as we're seeing at the moment with the continued sanctions against Iran. Medical sanctions. China, South Korea, Italy and Iran are the main countries that have been hit by it. 2 of them happen to be enemies of the US. But I'd also say that 26,000 or so people every month die of starvation. We don't see such a massive reaction, travel bans, in order to make sure those people don't die of starvation, to deliver food to them. And also, 2 winters ago in Britain, the ordinary flu, because we had a quite warm winter and it was a virulent strain of flu, 50,000 extra people died, and that's the official government figures from that strain of flu in the UK. So I think that there's been a bit of a hysteria, an overreaction, both by the mass media in the West and by governments instituting these enormous travel bans. That's not to trivialise the people that are dying, but we do need to understand that there are many causes of death in the world which can be averted quite easily. Things like tuberculosis, for example.
And finally, Marcus Papadopoulos, you have the Secretary of State, Michael Pompeo, on many occasions come out and say, we are with you, in reference to the people of Iran. You have the U.S. President Donald Trump, a few months back, started to tweet in Persian, hoping to show support for the Iranian people. Does he think the Iranian people don't realize, A, how sanctions have hurt them, and B, now in this situation, how it's actually leading to deaths?
Well, of course, Mike Pompeo, his predecessors, and this applies also to current American president and his predecessors, are compulsive liars. They are pathological liars. What they say in public is simply propaganda. It is simply for public consumption. It is simply to augment this facade that the Americans have been exporting around the world for many decades now, that America is with the ordinary man and woman across the world, in all 4 corners of the world, regardless of ethnicity or religion. In reality, however, the Americans have a very, very violent approach to a country and a people who do not bow down to the diktats of Washington. In the case of Iran, that takes the form of economic sanctions, which even before the outbreak of the coronavirus in Iran constituted a crime against humanity, was a breach of international law, because Iranians have died because of the sanctions which prevent Iran from importing medicine and medical equipment. So what the Americans say in public is simply a lie. And it's no different to how the Americans approached Serbia. They claimed in 1999 to be on the side of ordinary Serbs, and yet they bombed the country for 3 months. killing many children, and they even dropped uranium on Serbian civilians, which has resulted in a huge increase in cancer in that country. So I do not tolerate any person telling me that America is a champion for humanity. I look at the results of American foreign policy. I look at the graves which are there because of American foreign policy. And if British politicians and British journalists are sincere in calling on the world to come together to fight the coronavirus, then London will call on Washington in public and in private to lift the sanctions on Iran, which is causing immense suffering in that country because of the outbreak of the coronavirus there.
Thank you very much for that. Marcus Papadopoulos, publisher and editor at Politics First, and thank you, Tony Gosling, investigative journalist. And that does it for this news review. Thanks for tuning in.